Okay, this is an early look at the FanDuel lineup generator app. This is a Mac OS app, although it's written in Swift UI, so it could be fairly easily ported to iOS, really just for iPad. And most of the logic is in a library target, so it could also have a web interface put on it. But so what you do is the first thing is to load the FanDuel template, which is the CSV file that you downloaded from the FanDuel website for the contest. And that brings up the main interface. On the left is all of the players on both rosters. And what it's done is it's initially filtered them out and suggested that players be excluded based on injury status or points, if their average points per game is too low, games, if just the number of games played is too low. And so if I just go ahead and click generate right away, it gives me some validation warnings. And these are basically, it's trying to prevent you from wasting entries that are not likely to win. So even though all these players were past the initial validation checks, there are still some issues. For example, the Chargers have two tight ends, and here they are. You probably don't want to start two tight ends, and these two are both questionable. So I'm not really sure what to do about that, so I'm just going to bench them both and not play them. The Chargers also had two kickers, which is definitely not what you want. And I happen to know that this kicker is not playing. There were an excessive number of wide receivers as well. So I'm going to go ahead and filter out some of these wideouts who have not been producing. And let me try it again. Okay. So this is pretty unusual. You have one team with three running backs who all passed the checks, but you really don't want to have three running backs in your lineup. So I'm going to bench these two as I'm not too familiar with them, and I'll leave in Edwards-Helaire. That is not a good strategy, actually, but that's just what I'm going to do for now. In fact, if you look, these two are listed higher than Edwards-Helaire on the list because they have a higher points per fantasy dollar associated with them. But just for now, I'll go ahead and bench them and let's see what we get. Okay, so that did work. It generated 345 lineups, and that is too many. The maximum number of lineups you can enter in a contest is 150. So I'm not going to accept that. One thing you can do is to limit the number of lineups is limit the salary range that you accept for the final roster. So right now I'm taking any roster that ends up between 59,000 and 60,000, which is the FanDuel maximum. So I'll change this to 60,000. So now I'm only going to accept lineups that use exactly the absolute maximum value. Let's see what we have. Okay, so that generated 115 lineups. That's a pretty good result. I'm going to save that. 115 lineups in a 5-cent contest, you're looking at $5 and change. So if I want to see what happened, I can check on the summary here. And this comes up in a web browser. The reason I wrote to an HTML file and open in the browser is for easy printing. So I can print this on a landscape single sheet and it looks good. And this gives me a summary of where all the players were distributed throughout the slots. And that's a good even distribution. So I could take that, but I'll show some other things that you can do. I'm going to reset this. I'm going to change this back to 59,000. Another way to specify your lineups is you can lock players into different slots. So I can pick from these lists. I might think that Patrick Mahomes is going to have a big game, which is pretty reasonable. And so I'll lock him into the MVP slot, generate. And that gives me only 33 lineups. I'll save that. And then what I can do is just keep doing this. and let the lineups accumulate while it removes duplicates. So I might think also, I don't know, Austin Eckler. That's a safe bet. So I'll generate that. That generates 30 more lineups. So if I save those, now I have 63 lineups ready. And if I look at the summary, this basically confirms what I did there. I've got these two players locked into MVP slots, and then the remaining players are distributed throughout all the flex slots. And that's basically it. So you can click export, and that will generate a CSV file that is now ready to upload to FanDuel. I think for future development, the main thing that's missing here is additional statistics to help make the decision on who to bench and who to start. But that is what we have for now.